Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 5, verses 21 till the end. Bahyasparsheshvasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabbrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayamashnute yehi samsparshaja bhogaha dukhayonaya yevate adhyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha shaknoti haiva yah sodhum praksharira vimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha Yonta sukhontararamah tathantarjyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati labhante brahma nirvanam rishaya kshina kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha sarvabhutahite rataha kamakrodhaviyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam sparshan kritva bahirbahyan चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः य सदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति. Hari Om and Namaskaram to everyone. Wishing you all a very happy, prosperous and a sattvic year ahead. Right. Hari Om. Sitaramji, is it snowing anyway at your place by any chance?
Well, for me, it is always snowing in winter, wherever I am. I feel very cold.
Okay, hopefully the wisdom will hit you up.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Right. So the last we did was the 24th, where we learned he who is happy within, who rejoices within, who's illumined within, that yogi alone, becoming Brahman, gains the bliss of Brahman. So he uses the phrases, one who is Aramah, Sukham, and Jyotihi. The three times he uses the words implicating you, one who finds happiness at the physical level, one who finds happiness at the mental level, one who finds happiness at the intellectual level, at all who finds it within, who rejoices within, who's illumined within, who's happy within. Means not in the outside world, but who realizes it is within. I remember we all clarified this very important point. We all understand it is within, but how many of us realize it is not out there? The moment you realize that happiness doesn't reside in the external world, that very moment the search and the journey goes within. Becoming Brahman gains the bliss of Brahman. Remember the very powerful example we took of the moon. A person could find his way on a new moon day in pitch darkness. He can find his way through the light of the moon. Yet you and I know that there is no light in the moon. Similarly, the masters are telling us that even though you seem to experience certain joy or happiness in the external world, there is no joy or happiness. It is not the inherent trait or the quality or attribute of the world. It is your mind that is projecting a certain happiness. You are only trying to satisfy an imaginary, illusory belief. You're just satisfying that mental urge that is there in you. You are just swept away by the urge within. In reality, that there is no happiness, there is no joy, there is no satisfaction, nor is there any contentment in the external world. If there's enough experience for you, there's enough worldly experience to capture that, and that should resonate within. Since it doesn't, it only verifies, it only certifies the teachings of the Shastras that there is no joy inherent in the objects or beings of the world. If at all the objects or beings of the world are charming you, is because of your own inward vasana or a desire. It is your own inward calling, inward drawing, as it were. But there's nothing in it that has any substance. So the sooner we realize it, that very moment we turn inward. Otherwise, this vicious cycle of being drawn to the external world continues. We fall a prey to that. Exactly. In fact, the classic example of Ramayana conveys that, isn't it? The turning point of Ramayana was a text which runs into close to 48,000 verses. And the entire twist of that story, or the main turning point of the story was, if you can think along in the context, please. I keep saying that so that you are with the thought flow. What is the turning point in Ramayana? Sita gets enamored by the golden deer. She fell a prey to the temptations of the golden deer. And there it started. But Sita was reveling in peace or bliss or happiness as long as her thoughts were on the self, the Rama. When the moment her thoughts went outward, the entire problem starts. So if we are in trouble, it's because of our own outlook, it's because of our own extroverted outlook to life. All right, that's the powerful message we got in 24. So let's move on. We'll take verse 25. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha Sarvabhuta Hiterataha Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha Sarvabhuta Hiterataha. Sages attain the bliss of Brahman. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha. The sages attain the bliss of Brahman whose sins have been destroyed. Kshina Kalmashaha means who's destroyed their sins, whose dualities are torn asunder. Chinna Dvaidha. Dvaidha. Dvai means the two, whose dualities are torn asunder. Yatatma, who are self-controlled, who revel in the welfare of others. Sarva Bhuta Hiterata, who revel in the well-beings of others, the welfare of others. So this verse talks of the three paths to attainment of that state which he described in the previous verse. How to find that peace and contentment within? First, he says, destroyed his sins. Destruction of sins, destroying of sins refers to karma yoga. Self-control refers to bhakti yoga. Crossing the dvandvas refers to jnana yoga. So when you perform the karma, bhakti, jnanam, karma, what is karma yoga? Karma yoga is to function in a spirit of service and sacrifice. There's always that attitude of what I can do than what I can gain. It's not what I get, but what I can do. So it's the spirit of giving, the spirit of sacrificing, the spirit of letting go, the spirit where you convert action into worship is karma yoga. And you got to do that. Where do you do that? Where do you perform karma yoga? So, Guruji, you may say, sir, it's so easy for you to perform karma yoga. But how should I perform karma yoga? Karma yoga has to be performed in the field of your karma. The field of your karma is the field of your action. The field of your action is determined by the field of your swadharma. Swadharma gives you the field. You have no choice there. So whatever the field that you are driven to, what is the field that you're drawn to, convert that into worship. Divinize that action. Oblate it to a higher cause. So the only way you will raise the bar is keep shedding your selfishness. It's not how unselfish you are. The question is how less selfish you are. One and the same though, but if you are, so the important thing you have to keep in mind here is that you don't stagnate. And how do you ensure that you don't stagnate in the spirit of service and sacrifice? See, sacrifice or karma yoga is to continue to operate in a spirit of service. How do you ensure that you don't stagnate in this performance of service? It is possible to stagnate, isn't it? One can stagnate in anything. In fact, many people don't realize that they're stagnating spiritually. They're stuck spiritually. They don't realize it. So how does one ensure that you don't stagnate when you're performing service? To keep raising your bar by setting higher goals. It's easy to say. How do you ensure it? Maniji, how come you're completely dark? You can't see your picture, that it's not that bright. Maybe it's your lighting. Yeah, this is much better. Sorry, we can't hear you, sir.
The area where I normally sit, Guruji, Hari Om, it was under mop.
Yeah.
Now that she has done my area, I'm back. She's gone to the TV area, which is not my area. Hari Om. Yes.
Hari Om, Hari Om. So the question is, how does one ensure that one doesn't stagnate?
Yeah. Do I take it, Guruji? Am I still?
Yes, you're still on. If you want to say something, you can. Please go ahead.
As other learned friends already mentioned, the path is clear, the idea is there, the inputs are there and all that. But then what we need to do every day on a daily basis is, at the end of the day, just take an audit and say, today, in whatever I did in my kshetra, in my field, in wherever I am placed, on which I had no choice at all, how much of it was for a less selfish cause and how much of it for a more selfish cause? Unselfish, as you rightly pointed out, is something which is very utopian. At this point of time, straight away we can't go there. So how much are we going towards that this day compared to yesterday, like that? If you are able to have a conscious looking in and then talking to our own antaratma there, I guess that's the only way we'll be able to know where we stand. That's how we grow.
Yeah. Yeah. A serious audit, a constant realization. If you ask me, I don't know the answer. My job is to keep questioning and the inquiry should be on. That's about all. Sorry, sir, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was muted again. No, your answer was the point that you mentioned. Keep questioning is the answer.
Yeah.
Keep questioning yourself. That's the answer.
Yeah.
There's no let off, because without like you mentioned, without our knowing, the ego takes over, and then once it goes, it's just that's it. We need to regularly or constantly say where we are. Are we really there? Are we on the path? That's a Shurasya Dhara. Walking at the razor's edge again.
Correct.
I love that sentence in the
Shastras.
Yes.
Right. See, one of the important aspects of service we're often told is karma becomes yoga when you create an opportunity to serve. It's not that the actions which can't, every action has the potential to take you to the self. Every action. Now the question is whether you have the capacity to convert into a service. More so, when an opportunity comes, you should embrace it. Otherwise, you'll have to put an effort to convert that action into worship. See, Arjuna, in the very beginning of the battle, Krishna told him, you have fought many battles, but every battle you fought was not for a righteous cause. Here you have a battle you are fighting to establish dharma. Now, what greater cause you can ask for than this, and you want to abandon this war? You want to abandon this battle? You have lost your clarity, Arjuna. So if there is an opportunity for you to oblate your actions for a higher cause, you got to embrace it. If not, you got to be very conscious how you convert that action into a worship. You got to create an opportunity. So much so, Swami Ramatirtha says, thank the great Ramatirtha, he says, thank the Lord if you're born into a country, or if you're born into a situation or a place where it is suffering because of poverty and deficiency, inadequateness, because it gives you an opportunity to give. Thank the Lord for giving you the opportunity. So it's not how much you do. It's not a quantitative, nor is it limited to a certain action or a percentage or a proportion. Many people say, oh, I do charity. How much? I do 5% of my wealth as charity. I do 10% of my savings as charity. Or you quantify it. It is not an act of charity that makes you a giver. It is that attitude to be a giver at all times makes you a giver. So are you a giver or a taker at all times? That's important. And you can convert every action into worship. That capacity, that opportunity you have. And you are not giving because the beneficiary needs it. Remember, you are not taking the stance of a giver to relieve the sufferings or to support the taker. You are giving because if you don't give, you become a taker. So actually you must thank a receiver for giving the opportunity for you to grow and be unselfish. Because if there are no takers, I remain selfish, isn't it? So a true giver only looks for takers. And if you're complaining, you are not a giver, you are a taker. A true giver will never complain. A true giver will always give. How many times should I give? How much should I give? There is no question. The moment you think that way, you're not a giver. So it's not a quantitative, it is not limited to a particular action. Karma yoga is to function with a spirit of service and sacrifice. And you'll only be able to do karma when you have bhakti in you. Bhakti is a feeling. Everybody says, okay, what is your understanding of bhakti or devotion? Srinivas Reddy garu, what is your understanding of bhakti, sir?
So bhakti is, in my understanding, it could be get connected.
Connected to?
The higher cause, divine.
Isn't it karma also the same?
Yeah.
Then what is the difference between karma yoga and bhakti yoga?
Maybe. I can't differentiate.
In fact, in all the three yogas, whether be it karma or bhakti or jnanam, you are getting connected to the higher.
Right.
But when you use your physical body to get connected to the higher, it's called karma. When you use your emotion to get connected to the higher, it's called bhakti. When you engage your intellect to get connected to the higher, it's called jnana.
Got it.
So everything, the principle is the same. You are trying to convert your action, emotion, and thought to the higher. That is yoga.
Got it.
So that's the principle. All right. Okay, let me ask Annapurnama, what is your concept of devotion? What is bhakti?
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om, we can hear you. Yes.
Bhakti devotion is first of all recognizing supreme power above us and be conscious. Then only if we acknowledge that, first only we can stay disciplined and be careful about our actions. So always doing our actions with the view that that supreme power is watching. Like maybe some people will name it as conscience. Be true to your conscience or supreme power and be devoted. Think good, do good. Then only the supreme power will be happy. That is bhakti according to me.
All right. Okay. So, as you rightly said, so bhakti is to attune to a play of divinity. We are able to feel, identify with the role of providence and be extremely thankful and grateful for what has life provided you with. So bhakti or devotion is expressed as an impeccable attitude of thankfulness and gratefulness to the Lord. So when you are thankful and grateful for what you have received, so you will only be thankful and grateful for what you have received. So bhakti is to be aware of what providence has already provided you. So when you are grateful to the Lord, thankful to the Lord, when you're indebted for having received, what would you do? You would perform karma. You would perform service. You will convert every action as a one long chant of thankfulness to the Lord. You want to pay back. You want to give back because you have received. So bhakti or devotion is not a mere mechanical ritual or a superstition or getting involved in any practice. It's not, in fact, a great thinker said, in fact, Swami Ramatirtha said this, you can't claim yourself to be any more spiritual by merely going to a temple, church, or mosque only. I repeat, you can't claim yourself to be any more spiritual by going to a temple, church, or mosque only. So why I am saying that is you have an attitude of service only when you're grateful for what you have received. But today the concept of prayer is actually a total mockery. Very sorry to say. Today, what is the concept of prayer? What do people do in prayer? Yes, Srinivas Garu. We can go to the most celebrated temple or a place of worship anywhere in the world.
It's only presenting the wish list and demanding the God. That's the first and most thing when we go to the God and start praying.
And then everybody becomes a true businessman. They start bargaining with the Lord.
Yes, and they offer the things in token of the wish list what you're given there.
So it's believing that God will fall for your offerings.
Offerings.
Isn't that a sad mockery of what
That's true.
bhakti or devotion is, sir? In fact, you go to the Lord to thank for what He has provided with. On the contrary, you go and ask and demand for more.
That's true. God doesn't need of any of our.
God doesn't need it.
Yes.
But you going to place of worship and committing that cardinal sin of asking or demanding is the most unspiritual act one can do. Is to go and ask the Lord to give something. No truly spiritually awakened seeker will ever do that. So karma is action So you'll understand now, karma yoga is to function in a spirit of service. Service you can only do when you realize that you have already taken so much, when you're indebted. So bhakti triggers karma. Karma is not a mechanical act of doing, trying to help or do some service or charity. It's not a mechanical act of charity. It is an attitude of expressing your gratitude, knowing that you can never pay back. You can, and also action can never settle your what you have received. You can never ever pay back. So you continue to serve an attitude of giving. And then jnanam is the capacity, as he says, one who has crossed the dvandvas. Dvandvas is the opposite. So you should be able to discriminate. So the thought flow where you're able to discriminate the lower to the higher. That discriminative ability, where the clarity with which you separate the lower to the higher is known as jnanam. As the famous definition of jnana yoga, can anybody remember what is the definition of jnanam? Rajima? All right, no problem. What is the definition of knowledge or jnanam? It's not how scholastic you are, how many scriptures you have rattled. It's not how much knowledge you have by heart. What is that? It's the spirit of it. What is the true spirit of jnanam? Humility. Now, seeking. Punyam papam. No punya, no papam. Ability to differentiate between good and bad. Inquiring. In fact, the famous definition in the Shastras given about jnanam is nitya anitya viveka vicharam. You must remember this. Jnanam is not mere erudition or scholarship or mere information. Jnanam is nitya anitya viveka vicharam. Nitya is eternal. Anitya is ephemeral. Viveka is discrimination. Vicharam is thought. So you are constantly engaged in the distinction between the real and unreal, the lower and the higher, the passing, the fleeting, and the permanent. That is true jnanam. One who has that jnanam is always symbolized with the third eye, is to gain that inner perception to see it's not worth falling for. This is not the real. So the capacity to be able to dissect, separate the lower from the higher. And that is jnanam. Okay, we have heard of these concepts. We know karma, bhakti, jnanam. Now, how do you know that you have, what's the quality control that a state you reach when you perform the karma, bhakti, jnanam? So the quality control, the spiritual evolution you reach is a state where he says, sarva bhuta hite rataha, which means you revel in the welfare of all beings, who revels in the welfare of others. That is the quality control of having done karma bhakti jnanam. You reach that state where you are in the you are interested in the benefit of others. You revel in the welfare, in the goodness of others. This is the quality control. If you have spiritually evolved, you will reach the state of reveling in others' well-being. So I'm very sorry to say, this particular verse, this message in this verse, and those who are Non-vegetarians, they don't go together. You can't say, I love God, I am a spiritual seeker, I have love for every being, and then yet you go about destroying those innocent creatures just to satisfy your mere palate pleasure. Such people, this verse, they don't go. Means those who eat and claim themselves to be spiritual, religious, are black and white, hot and cold. They don't gel. That's all I'm saying. We're not saying you should not eat. Please, who are we to say anything? You can carry on and do what you want. But don't do this and say, I'm a spiritual practitioner, I'm a spiritual seeker, I have love for God. If you truly have love for God, you will not want to cause any harm or engender anything that could cause any inconvenience or suffering to others. That's the fundamental spiritual quality you should have. How can you... in fact, there's a very famous saying. I don't know who said that. If slaughterhouses had glass walls, we all would be vegetarians. I don't know who said that. If slaughterhouses had glass walls, we all would be vegetarians. You don't know what they go through even before they reach the journey. They are perceptible. They perceive emotions. They experience pain. They know what it is. Oh my God. And yet you subject them through that just for your pleasure. What about the argument of plants, Sushama? What are you asking there?
Hari Om Guruji, can you?
I could hear you and again lost you.
Now, can you?
Yes,
Yeah.
now yes.
There's also an argument that plants and also have a life. So non-vegetarians basically they argue. Then why are you eating vegetables? And I mean that kind of an argument is also there. So
no, it's a very logical argument, but one must understand. There's another argument which substantiates it, that the law is the lower has to be sacrificed for the higher. Okay. Now again, we should not use this law or argument for our own justification. If that be so, you can say, yes, even animal kingdom is lower to a human, and therefore I sacrifice them for my pleasure. All right. Now, what we are doing is the lower has to be sacrificed because we have to survive and sustain. If you don't, you die, isn't it? So you are causing not for the mere satisfaction, but for sheer sustenance. But when you extend that, where you go and destroy them for mere pleasure or mere satisfaction of some joy you get. Imagine you are in somewhere in the Arctic, somewhere in the God-forsaken place where there is no vegetation, and there are communities there which live only on meat. Perhaps for them it is justifiable that you can't cultivate nor vegetate, nor you can survive on vegetation, so therefore I resort to it. Understandable. You see, so the lower has to be sacrificed for the higher, but that doesn't mean you just do that for the mere palate pressure. In fact, ahimsa, the concept of ahimsa is non-injury or non-killing, isn't it? But yet, would you not kill mosquitoes or pesticides? Would you not do?
we do. Yeah.
So ahimsa doesn't mean non-killing. Ahimsa means it is an attitude of non-injury. So you can kill and yet uphold ahimsa. Again, the lower has to be sacrificed for the higher, because if I don't apply that principle, what will happen? I'll have to write my property to these bugs and creatures and a clear law, right? Will. You write your will to them and you vacate, because then they'll inundate you. You can't live there, isn't it? It's a matter of time. You'll have to vacate. So you serve for your sustenance, you have to kill, but you don't kill for the sake of joy. Remember, we take the example of a kid plucking the legs of a grasshopper. That is for the mere pleasure you're doing it. So if I were to kill a mosquito, you will not incur any karma. So please go about killing them. But don't curse them and kill. Kill them because you have to survive. Otherwise, you will be end up with you'll invite trouble. You get what I'm saying? So just because you are destroying doesn't mean you incur karma, or you can't use the law to justify your actions. All what they are saying is, if you don't have this quality where you can't think in the welfare of others, you can't revel in others' well-being, you have not spiritually established or grown. Okay. Let's move on. Yeah, Shivaji, you want to say something?
Hari Om.
Yes,
by eating the plants, we are not stopping their future generations that may have to survive. By eating an animal, you are stopping that. There's no, they can't again procreate, and it cannot continue. Whereas we have the seeds, so we can continue the generations of that. We are not stopping it. We are not putting an end to it.
Very true. It's a very valid argument. A very valid point. Yes. And as Ramji rightly puts, you eat bats and you invite something else, Whether it has come from bats or it's come from cats, I do not know. Whether bats or cats or rats, it is the curse of the animal kingdom on humanity. You would dread going anywhere near them. There was a very beautiful article, The Curse of the Silkworms. The Curse of the Silkworms. Search for it, it will be there. In fact, the animal kingdom is fighting back, defending themselves because of the ruthlessness of humanity. They are defending. You would not go anywhere near them. You would cull the birds, or you would not want to go anywhere near them because of fear. So humanity is not learning lessons until we self-destroy ourselves. In fact, I would say humanity is an endangered species now. We should write to the World Health Organization to say, declare human race as an endangered species. The acts with which we are going on, it might end anytime. Very sad. Yes, Badrinath ji.
Yeah, in the same context, Guruji, the Kalahari Desert in South Africa, it's a very desolate place. It's one of the harshest places in the world to live. And the only people who can survive there are the Bushmen. The Bushmen have to kill to survive.
Yep.
And they cannot live anywhere else. For thousands of years, they've stayed in that same desert.
Yep.
So they have a beautiful practice that after they kill an animal, they have a little ceremony where they seek forgiveness of the animal for the act of killing, and then only they consume the animal. So I'm sure a lot of our tribals also in India who live in places where plant material is not available.
Yep.
So we cannot say such acts of killing don't fit into the verse that we are currently studying, because those are separate. So this is where discrimination comes in. There's no absolute rule there. It's like you said, the Eskimos in the Arctic, they will have to kill.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It's the attitude, and it's, as you said, you don't curse a mosquito before killing them. Okay. If you can, you seek the forgiveness before you kill them.
But if you go about seeking forgiveness from every mosquito, you will not be alive.
No.
So don't go through the formality. Just go ahead and kill, sir. Afterwards, wholesale forgiveness will seek. Yeah.
In your mind, what I'm saying is, it's the approach to it. That there can be a violent act without violence in the mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what I'm saying.
Absolutely, very well said. Absolutely, that's what we're conveying. Yes. So the act of killing by itself doesn't mean you don't identify or feel, if you have a feeling for them. So you can kill, and yet, as rightly said, where you seek forgiveness because you have no other option or choice for survival. There, the law holds good. The lower has to be sacrificed for the higher, but you don't do that for mere palate pleasure.
Right.
Just to. I'm told, if you do a study, there's enough study out there that tells you if a rich silk sari a lady wears, a silk sari needs 60 to 70,000 silkworms boiled alive. You need to boil the silkworm alive. You don't know, if you want to know what is that pain of burning, just take some hot water and pour on your finger, not even your hand, on your finger, or dip your finger on a hot boiling water. You know what that pain is, you know what it is, and yet these silkworms are fed so that they grow fast so that they can yield the silk, they release the silk. 70,000 silkworms boiled alive for one sari. After the class, just do me one favor for your own audit. Subramanian Garu, audit sonningleya. Go and audit, open your wardrobes and count the number of silk saris you have. Multiply it, then take a calculator and find out how many silkworms are there in my cupboard. Are you conscious? You don't have to be a non-vegetarian. You are doing enough harm by Kanchipuram pure silk. The pujaris, the temple priests, the most ritualistic people wear silk shawl, silk dhoti, a silk scarf. Multiply that. A silk scarf or a silk tie will be 15,000 silkworms. Allah karma. This also falls into the bracket. You are not able to identify. You want what do you call this? Pure leather. Where does it come from? It comes from animal skin. Where are we getting it from? Where are we ordering it? It's all demand and supply. So all of that falls into the bracket, please. You want furniture, you want pure teak wood. A tree which took 200 years to grow, you fell it and then you satisfy your desire to have pure teak furniture in your house. I know a student who went a long way in getting the entire house, a huge villa, ordered exclusive teak wood, got it imported from overseas, which meant the loss of that rainforest. We all are attributing to it, contributing to it. That incurs sin very much. You're not thinking in the Ushama, then that will fall into the bracket. And all that mindless acts, we all face consequences. Yes, Srinivas Garu.
In this context, I would like to say one point, Guruji. One full grown tree weighs between 250 to 300 kgs. And most of these biomass power plants have come up where average about 10,000 kgs of wood will be consumed per hour. That means between 40 to 50 trees has to be, which is taken 3 to 4 years to grow, has to be cut and to be fed to create a stream and generate the power.
What power is it?
We're talking about thermal power, biomass power.
Biomass power.
What we're talking about. So we require between 40 to 50 trees, which has a age of between 3 to 5 years for every 1 hour consumption, which they consume 24 into 7 and 365 days.
Sir, shall I switch off my light, sir?
So only we need to distinguish whether we are getting a biomass light or a coal thermal based light. Then you can take a conscious call.
See, it is when you start taking everything into account, perhaps it becomes impossible for us to even sustain.
This time.
You know? Like every time you breathe, so many microorganisms you're killing. Every time you take a walk, so many insects and innocent creatures and bugs are all crushed innocently. So where do we draw a line? So the line you draw is how conscious you are of your actions, how mindful you are. So if you are conscious, then perhaps it is the dawn of spirituality in you. You are really connecting with the world.
Yeah.
With the creation.
It is conservation starts from us.
Yes, it all starts with us. It all starts with our thought. Yeah, rightly said. Every technology has an impact. Ramji is saying you have to compare the losses in each and choose that which is the least impact on environment. Absolutely. Just being conscious and mindful. That's all I would say. That's all. And if each one of us do that, it's a different world out there. It's a different world out there. Now, we are not even talking about the hatred for our own fellow creatures. We are only talking about hating the animal kingdom. What about the hatred towards our fellow creatures? There was an employee, an industrialist actually, who hated his employees. And no sooner later, the industry had to close. It shut down. He paid the price for not identifying with his own workforce, not being grateful for his own team, for his own employees. So are you in the interest of your own fellow workers? Is there that feeling of oneness, that love and identification? And if that is, wherever it lacks, one pays a hefty price. Yes, toilet paper, tissues. Rajima, we will stop buying tissues from now on. I mean, I keep telling her for the center to keep, shopping. Yes, what do you need? As with tissue paper bring. So, as rightly said, or we'll use very sparingly. Can we reuse them? Huh? Sitaramji, you want something to say? Cloth towels, yes.
Now, the only point I was trying to make on the basis of what Ram mentioned, that every technology has an impact on the environment. I suppose the criteria is the sustainability of that particular technology. That's what has to be seen. The other gentleman mentioned about the biomass being used for generating electricity. That's true. I mean, nobody likes to do that. But if there's one source which is renewable and sustainable, is the biomass. You can keep growing there. But that's not true for fossil fuels. So technology has to be weighed in terms of the impact on the environment and its sustainability. That's one.
Yeah. Sir, after a while, I am ignorant to comment, sir. So I rather move on to the next verse.
Yeah.
If you allow me. Right. All right, 26. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatha chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatha chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. coming to the conclusion of the text, he says, for those who are freed from desire and anger, who are self-controlled and who have completely subdued their mind, who have realized the self, the bliss of Brahman resides in them. Now you may find them very repetitive. You may find them, why are they saying the same thing again and again? Now, only thing is, you know how well you have understood and how well you have assimilated. So the only reason why they are repeating this idea again and again is hopefully you will start absorbing. Thank you, sir. You start absorbing the idea. You start assimilating the idea. So what they're saying, for those who are freed from desire and anger, kama, krodha, viyuktanam. Viyuktaha, you're free from desire and anger, who are self-controlled, yatinam. Yatachetasam, who have subdued, that control their mind. Now, you will find that this topic, in fact, these set of verses from verses 20 to 29, you remember the context of the discussion of these verses. Verses 20 to 29, he talks about how renunciation precedes meditation and realization. Verses 20 to 29, how it is important. Why is preparation important before you even attempt to meditate? The modern gurus out there do not talk of this. They don't mention it, nor do they specify it, because they will not have a market. If you say them free from desire, anger, self-control, subdue your mind, then only you realize yourself, nobody is fit for meditation, include the gurus out there. It is not, I am not saying, the Lord himself saying, go to the Shastras, they very well said. Now, why I said 27 and 28, he's talking about the actual practice of meditation. He gives the procedural details how to meditate. I'm sure you all meditate. You're all gurus of meditation. But yet, here the text is saying, do not meditate if you don't have this in check, if you have not achieved this level. So you have to be fundamentally a highly introverted person to meditate. Today, the most extroverted people are meditating. And who is an extroverted person? An extroverted person is one who is infused with desires. Is loaded with desires, and those desires have a lot of consequences, mental repercussions. So whenever you have a desire and expectation, it only has to lead with a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental disturbance. Therefore, he calls desire and anger. So you are very emotional, you are agitated. So an agitated mind cannot meditate. And yet, meditation today is taught to the minds who are agitated. Because the majority of people in the world are extroverted people. Now, what is the percentage of people who are introverted, sir? Maniam sir, the percentage kudukka mudiyuma? What is the percentage of people who are introverted in the entire human race?
Minuscule. No, I don't know the percentage of minuscule.
So a small percentage of people are introverted. And yet today meditation is being given as a practice to calm the mind. Is it not?
Yeah, that's right. But then, Guruji, we need to see how this flock, has to come to this route also. Like you said, if we precede all these things and say that's it, nobody would come in at all. So we need to, give them that there is this, this heaven, whatever the meditation is that kind of bliss and all. The possibility is there. So that's why the act of sitting in meditation and trying to do that act of meditation is to become meditative in your day-to-day life also, so that they become less selfish. Like you said, they don't hate their employees. All those things, those qualities could be slowly injected into them in slight dose, like we do for children also. You start giving them feeding, showing this and that till this child is able to feed by herself or himself. So I guess it's essential. It's not that we target. That's my take.
No, there is no harm in trying to understand what is in store. But the Shastras only cautioning us of the imminent danger of not following the methodic process to reach that state where you become meditative. As you rightly use the word, it is to become meditative. So meditation is not a process.
Act by
Meditation
itself.
is actually, it's not an act. It is a state you reach. It's a culmination of your journey. So we can't put the cart before the horse. That's what people are trying to do. So today meditation has got such traction that it is being marketed and sold as the in spiritual thing today. And since it has got a charm, now why are people flocking towards meditation is because it has got a charm. Undeniable. Undoubtedly it has got a charm. And in fact, it has such benefits to reap as well. So I can echo with those people who say that meditation works. I agree with you, but it is a quick fix. It is not a permanent solution to the underlying problem of your desires. You are not uprooting, you are not addressing your desires and vasanas from the root. You're just, what you're doing, you're just trimming the tree. The root are deep rooted, and the vasanas and desires and selfishness will not go. You will not be able to handle your attachments. You will not be able to get rid of your imperfections or the desires. They will not die away. You need to have a deep cleansing to able to get rid of the underlying desires and the thought currents. So the mere charm of meditation will not address that. Yes. In fact, why does meditation have a charm?
It is straight away showing you that ultimate. If you go it by our Sanatana Dharma stage, it has to be Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and then Jnana Yoga. That's where meditation comes. It goes in that stage. But then when people don't have that much of this thing, when people are, the so-called gurus and all that, they just have to have one marketing mantra, whatever it is. So you say the whole thing, go by that, it doesn't work. So it could be anything, just showing that. It does, yes, it does. But then at least that way, if you're able to come reverse and said, okay, has it given me bhakti? Am I being working in the Karma Yoga principle? If it comes back also, it's good.
It will not work. That's why I said you're putting the cart before the horse. It will not work that way. If one in a generation can truly claim to meditate, my salutations to them. So if meditation truly is that state, no, what they're trying to do is they're marketing it as meditation, but they're doing some mental relaxation techniques. They're just trying to calm. Yeah. But you and I should understand, the rational mind should understand these are temporary measures. It doesn't help you to reach the true state of meditation where the mind is matured. In fact, a matured mind meditates, a calm mind meditates. You can't do meditation to calm the mind.
Yeah. It's not that. Absolutely.
You can't do that. And today, meditation is being used to calm the mind. And it does calm the mind, and it only has a temporary effect. That's what we are saying. So the real effect of meditation is what we're going to learn here. But here he says, for those who are freed from desire and anger, who self-control, subdued their mind, who have realized the self, the bliss of Brahman resides in them. So the next two verses, he talks about the actual practice of meditation. Okay. Let's chant 27 and 28 together. We'll chant once. We'll just get into the verse. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyan chakshuschaivantare bhruvoho pranapanau samau kritva nasabhyantaracharino yatendriyamano buddhihi munirmokshaparayanaha vigatechha bhaya krodhaha Ya sada mukta yeva saha. Can I have a translation, please? So these two verses are chanted because the procedural details of meditation are mentioned in the two verses. So first he says in 27, shutting out external contacts, fixing the gaze as though in between the two eyebrows, equalizing the flow of incoming and outgoing breath in the nostrils, with senses, mind, and intellect controlled, having liberation as the goal, the sage, free from desire, fear, and anger, is verily liberated forever. Look at the mere procedural details to meditate. Tell me one guru out there who tells all of this. I have nothing against the thing. I'm trying to uphold what the Shastras are saying. I will go to the extent and say a true guru will never teach you to meditate, because he'll only prepare you for meditation, never tells you to meditate. When you are ready for it, you will automatically meditate. Like when the child is ready, the child will come out from the womb. The mother has to do nothing. In the sense, the child is ready. You can't prematurely force it. You're asking for trouble. You can't go to the doctor and say, you're given the date that my child may be born around the mid of April, and you said 14, 13, 14. I don't want my child to be born on the Fool's Day. Can you, maybe science today can do it. I'm saying you can't go and say delayed by 2 days or premature by 1 week. No, nothing can be done. When the child is ready, it will come, full stop, accept it. So when you're ready for meditation, you meditate. A guru's job is to prepare you for it. And all the preparation here. So one who's ready for it will meditate. And you can meditate to the extent you're introverted. To the extent you're extroverted, you cannot meditate. And by forcing yourself to meditate, you will cause and create more damage. You must realize that. The only thing that is saving people is their inconsistency in meditating. If you consistently do what you're doing because it's an unnatural practice, it is only going to have an adverse effect. If you sit 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes in a day, it's okay, chalta hai. You do it longer and consistently, you're asking for trouble. So shutting out, first you do shutting out external contacts. Means physically and mentally you cut out from the world. You can't be sitting in the marketplace and meditating. You must find a quiet place. If you don't have a quiet place, you choose a quiet time. Perhaps early in the morning, if you want to meditate, you can sit early in the morning where the rest of the world is asleep. Nothing disturbs you. And you can be sitting in a quiet place, but then your mind can be violent. So therefore, starts with external and then comes to internal. And the quality where your mind is not drawn to the world, that quality is known as uparati. Uparati is a state where you're mentally withdrawn from the world. Your mind is not available for the world. So physically withdrawn, mentally withdrawn, fixing the gaze as though in between the two eyebrows. So what does it mean? Between the two eyebrows, symbolically, what you're trying to do is, Gayatri Ma, what does two eyebrows mean here?
Attention, focusing
Sorry.
at one.
Sorry?
It's one pointed attention, not focusing, not gazing here and there at one point. Single point attention.
No, I don't think it conveys single point, but in between the two eyebrows means in between the two thoughts. See, what is in between the two thoughts?
There is a gap, like
There is a silence, isn't it?
Yes.
In between two words, for example, when you're chanting the mantra, Om, Om, Om. you realize there is matra, the sound, and there's amatra, there's no sound.
Silence.
Silence. Again, there is sound to disturb the silence. Again, there's silence. So there is silence in between two thoughts.
Yes.
So concentrating in between the two eyebrows is to try and capture the silence between the sounds and then elongate the silence. So as you keep established in meditation, you keep elongating the silence. For example, you chant Om. Om. So what you have done, consciously you have elongated the silence. And in that silence, you are achieving to maintain a state of thoughtlessness. And since the mind is mature, the mind is able to get transfixed in that thoughtless state. That becomes a considerable challenge, almost impossible for an immature mind. For an immature mind, what happens? The mind is so violent with so many thoughts. There is a traffic jam of thoughts. And you're trying to push them. Shanti, Shanti. The moment you're trying to forcibly quieten the mind to be Shanti, that means you're not ready for meditation. At least for that moment. Don't do it. Get it? So when the mind by itself naturally calms down, there is no thought that is thoughting in the mind. Forgive me for the language. Huh? So no thought should be thoughting in the mind. And that is when you are ready for meditation. That's why he says equalizing. And then he says equalize the flow of incoming and outgoing breath. Having the senses, mind and intellect controlled. See, again he says, even when he is talking of the procedural details, your senses are perfectly under control, your mind is perfectly controlled, your intellect perfectly controlled. So much emphasis on preparation, self-control, with liberation as the goal. Moksha parayana. So a person who is sitting in meditation, his only goal is liberation. If you have any other thought other than liberation, it is not meditation. Don't tell me this is the state of the practitioners of meditation in the market today. It is very easy for me to start teaching meditation. Very easy. 30 years I'm breaking my head trying to teach this knowledge. I would have been somewhere else if I had only got into doing meditation, because there's a market out there for that. There's no market out this. I'm still devoted and committed to teaching this knowledge to a handful of you all. But if I get on to meditation and start marketing, it's a matter of time. I will be somewhere else. But I will not be true to my conscience, because the Shastras are not telling this. A person who sits for meditation is only doing for moksha, for nothing else but that. It has a position, it has a right place. And then he says that sage, free from desire, fear and anger. Now in the two verses, how many times is repeated? Gayatrima? You see, in the matter of 2-3 verses, he is repeated so many times. Free from desire, free from anger, free from fear. Control the mind, control the senses, self-control, subdue the mind. If you have not got this, this is the quality control. The product is not ready for the market. You have failed the quality control. And you undermine all this and still plunge into it, you are taking a gamble. And only that sage who is free from desire, fear and anger is very liberated forever. A very rare experience though. Not One has to put in phenomenal effort. Spirituality is a full-time job. You can't do it weekend retreats, other you can't attain salvation by weekend retreats or quarterly retreats or half-yearly retreats and go and then meditate and experience transformation. You got to slog in like a bull in the field. Literally, you got to spiritual path is like a slogging in the field, like a bull, a full-time job. And then, and in spite of that, there's no guarantee that I can only talk of myself. I can't talk of you. There's no guarantee I will reach this state where I'll be able to sit and meditate. And I'm openly confessing, I do not meditate because I know I'm not there yet. And when I'm there, I don't have to advertise I'm doing it. It will automatically happen. It's only spiritual path is 99% perspiration. It's 1% inspiration. 99% effort and last 1% is you just slide into realization. That part is effortless. So till then 99% is effort, 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 effort. Nothing else than that. Effort not to meditate, effort to make your mind worthy of meditating. And this is what Lord Vyasa, Shastras, everybody is trying to say. It is not that we are against anything. It's only trying to uphold what the Shastras are saying. Okay? We'll come back. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.